Hey everyone, I'm Charting Man Dan with the Chart Guys. I've been trading for 13 and a half years. There's a lot to talk about in this video. We're going to talk about the potential that Tesla is putting in a bottom, things that I'm looking for, and rotation that I'm watching for. We're going to talk about semiconductors, NVDA, or not earnings. Event is currently ongoing with a lot of volatility after hours. And the cannabis sector with a big day Friday following through today. Is it finally time for the cannabis sector to shine? Let's look at the charts. All right, let's start with the bigger picture first. So SPY is in a very nice tightening range, and the NASDAQ just gave us a really nice tightening range. It broke bear to end last week. We'll see how SPY breaks, but just a lower high, higher low, and now failing resistance. Look at all these tops. In the 515s, we've topped out now 4 times in the last 5 days. Very clearly, the bears are defending 515. As long as the bulls hold 508.12, they keep full control of the daily uptrend. One of these two levels, and I'm looking at them as zones, not individual levels, one of these two zones is going to break here within the next few days. And guess what's gearing up? FOMC on Wednesday. Would not be surprised for that to be a catalyst for a break one way or the other. But definitely watching how we break, because we've been seeing the NASDAQ and the semiconductors pulling back more significantly. Healthcare and the financial sector holding up well, offsetting that to a certain degree, and still a balance going on, rotation going on, watching to see if anything shifts. The NASDAQ, as I mentioned, leading the way down, not in a massive way. You know, we had a sideways range here that did break bear on Friday. Significant strength overnight into pre-market, but is this just another daily lower high? There's a lot of gap down here. The gap to fill is down at 425.70. The weekly consolidation is underway, but again, it's very minimal at this point. This is the kind of scenario where if you break bear with zero follow through, it's a weekly bull flag. The question is going to be, do we follow through into this gap fill? And part of the rotation, you know, I'm always talking about rotation, but part of the rotation is getting a little bit more tricky to pay attention to, because normally it's just NASDAQ, XLF, XLV, IWM, and NASDAQ and semiconductors. That's how it's been, these two groupings. But now you're getting inter, I forget which, I'm on the spot. NASDAQ rotation where semiconductors are doing one thing and then big tech is doing something else. So Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, Meta, they're all doing something, and the semiconductors are doing different things, and that's obviously impacting the NASDAQ. And so we could see pretty much all morning the semiconductors starting to have relative weakness comparative to the NASDAQ as Apple had a strong morning and Microsoft bulls bought the dip. Microsoft was initially weaker because Apple and Google had a headline that shifted some attention to Google. But that's essentially what I'm watching right now. But my focus is more on semiconductors. Semiconductors is part of a hedge I have going. You know, I talked about in a couple weeks ago, I'm being really cautious in March. This is way too much euphoria, and I'm, being protective right now. And so shorting semiconductors, again, as a hedge, not a, aggressive short position, but that was part of it. And I'm watching these semiconductors leading the way down right now after leading the way up. And so right now the conference is going on after hours, and we'll check in on this in just a moment. But again, gap up open into a pullback all day, closing near the low. But the bears must break 215.93 for this weekly consolidation to continue. If you're a bear, you want this to head down to weekly EMA 12 for some follow through. And so it's a clear 4-hour downtrend that's a guide. And the 4-hour on NVDA, the strength this morning, it would be easy to say, should I ditch this hedge? The semiconductor bulls are back. We've got this AI event. But NVDA's 4-hour equilibrium kept me in because I knew anything under 938 was just a 4-hour lower high. Now we set it, and now we're testing support. And so it's possible we hold support and we tighten up into tomorrow, making that a key day. You can see after hours, the volatility. We just bounced off the low of the day. And definitely watching the 4-hour time frame on NVDA as a key guide for the semiconductor in the short term. And, SMCI, clear bear break today, big bear day. It's got a gap down to 927. Its weekly consolidation is clearly underway. AMD has been leading the way down. So we knew there was euphoria, right? How far can you go in a straight up line? And that is coming to a conclusion. No, not a conclusion, wrong word. It's on pause, at least into consolidation. And we're going to be looking for weekly higher lows in this sector. It's just a question of how much pullback do we see first. The direction that SPY breaks, the direction that NVDA breaks, these tightening ranges are going to give us some insight. Is it time for Tesla? So I'm watching for rotation. Tesla has been doing nothing but going down, showing immense relative weakness, the most relatively weak it's been to the NASDAQ in almost 4 years, 3.5 years. Why? Semiconductors are getting the spotlight. Semiconductors are stealing the spotlight from Tesla in 2024. That's my analysis of what's going on from a fundamental perspective. And so now that the semiconductors are cooling off a little bit, are we going to see rotation into Tesla? Tesla had its most bullish day today in a long time. And, if we're going to go look back and say, when's the last time we were this strong? It's been a long time. Probably there. A month or so. 3 weeks. Anyways, it's still a daily downtrend, but again, it was just a striking difference. Friday, there was relative strength. It stood out. We held the low of Thursday when the NASDAQ dropped to lower lows. Today, it was glaringly standing out the relative strength in Tesla after a V-shaped recovery from the low of the day after an initial sell-off. And so what do I need to see from here? Relative strength consistently return. Anything under 182.87 is just a daily lower high. I would love to see, personally, I don't have a position at the moment, I'm watching for one. I'd love to see an inverse head and shoulders setup, fail resistance, give us a daily uptrend confirming. Who knows if that'll shape up? We know the bulls have clear short-term momentum, but they're in a downtrend on all longer-term timeframes right now. So we're watching, is this a 3-month higher low shaping up? And we've got nowhere near enough information to say if it is or not. Keep an eye on Tesla divided by QQQ. For the most part, it's going to be doing what the Tesla chart is doing. When we're dropping harder than the NASDAQ. When we're going up harder than the NASDAQ. That just means it's more volatile than the NASDAQ. But there are days where you can get some clues, and you just want to see this chart consistently shift. And so it's the same, again, right now it looks the same as the Tesla chart. It's not giving us any information, but I keep checking it to see if there is some information and some clues to be had, but nothing at the moment. It is just a part of my analysis and something that I'm going to be keeping a close eye on as I make a decision on when to look for an entry on Tesla. Cannabis name. So big day Friday, put out the video over the weekend. It's got the most views in 6+ weeks for the sector. The hype is returning, the volume's returning. Kamala Harris talking about, rescheduling being a priority, hurry up DEA, and follow through. 2 gaps and follow through. We're used to gaps being tops in this sector, but the volume behind this move is allowing the gaps to follow through. And so this is a huge win for the bulls the last 2 days. 969 is the most important level. Again, same thing. Even if we fail it, we have not confirmed a daily uptrend at this point. So we know eventually we're going to consolidate and we have to form the daily higher low. I'd love to see an inverse head and shoulders shape up if we struggle at 969. What's the best case scenario for the bulls to tell us they're in complete control? When we do see daily consolidation, have hourly oversold, mark a daily higher low into continuation. That's the clear trademark of a bull market if that happens. So if you're looking for an entry right now or you want to add, you're not trying to chase after 2 gaps. If we gap up tomorrow, it's a 3 gap up bearish reversal pattern, which just means bulls are generally tired when you gap up 3 days in a row. But you're looking for entry on daily consolidation and you're watching for first hourly oversold, knowing that now there's a ton of space for a daily higher low to form. As I've been saying, my focus is on Florida names. Truly, the relative strength is why I shifted from being my main core all MSOS to now 60% Trulieve and 40% MSOS, maybe 65-35, but here we got Trulieve knocking on the door to continuation, 52-week highs. We failed by 6 pennies today. If we get over 1196, next resistance, we're looking at 12 psychological, and then it's pretty limited. Just in terms of immediately after, we're looking at 1240, and then up to 13. So big time couple of days here. And again, just the fact that if we get to April, we've got the Florida legalization vote on the ballot if the Supreme Court in Florida doesn't say no before April. We've also got CGC trying to short squeeze. So CGC, we could see volume analysis is key. Comparative volume analysis. So you can tell, I could tell an hour into the trading day, Canopy is going to have the highest volume day in at least 6 months, 5.5 months or whatever. And that's just because in the first hour, we put up a massive amount of volume. MNMD gave us 2 times the average daily volume pre-market the day that it had the 88% move up on news. Comparative volume, when you see very high volume versus the norm, it gives you information. And CGC, after the initial hour, nice move, But, there was a whole nother leg up that took place after we saw that volume. Once we got the new high of the day, there was still another 8% to the upside. Definitely some profit taking after that, but looking to form an hourly high or low. Again, for me, these names are traders. These names are trying to capitalize on a short squeeze, but if you're a long-term bear, bears have feasted on these short squeezes time and time again. As soon as the momentum stops, sometimes it takes a while, but as soon as the momentum stops, it leads into a slow bleed. And so, I'm not sure that that's going to change. I mean, you get the right headline, we're going to get a lot more follow through, but just be aware that, if you're a bear looking at this sector, you're waiting for the bulls to top out and tire, and you're shorting these Canadian names that have been in downward spirals for a significant amount of time and that have been diluting through that time. TLRY didn't do nearly as much, but definitely broke the lower highs, definitely followed through. A big day, bulls aren't complaining. Again, trying to set an hourly high or low into the end of the day. It's just a question of, hot potato. How long can the bulls keep the move going before they top out and then before we start to fade a bit? If you're long US cannabis and you don't like these Canadian names, you're looking to short them once they top out as a hedge, but you've got to use a stop because if it's a short squeeze, you could get run over. But again, the bulls have momentum for now. It's just a question of how long can they keep that momentum because we've seen this plenty of times before. Again, you don't want to be short anything in the sector if the headline comes out from the DEA. So just be aware of that as well. Other than that, other names that I'm in, OGI, loving the fact that it's testing its recent high after 232. We would get back to 52-week highs. There's a gap to fill up at 268 from there. Big 2 days there. MNMD, so psychedelics, still have a runner in this position. Loving how it's trading. Resistance of 1010 and then up to 1110, but nice follow through and keeping daily EMA 12 and keeping the uptrend strong. So really good day in the high risk, high reward sectors here of, I don't want to say all psychedelics because I don't know. No, ATAI is bad for the bulls. CMPS broke support. It's really MNMD. So I'm only focused on MNMD and cannabis at the moment. And I'm definitely shifting back and forth a good bit the last few weeks, but got to follow the volume and price action, and cannabis has it for now. So financial sector holding on just fine. Daily EMA 12, daily uptrend. I need to see a break of 40-40 if we're going to see any weakness here into weekly consolidation. Simple statement, if 40-40 is holding, then we're seeing healthy rotation where some of the NASDAQ and semiconductor sell-off is being absorbed by the financial sector holding strong. Same thing with healthcare. Healthcare is not doing much, but if we break this base of support at 143.99, it'll be a shift and a win for the bears in the short term. So watching that as well. Essentially, the question is into the FOMC, are we going to break into weekly consolidation for the S&P 500? It's a weekly stair step, high or low every single week for the last 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 weeks at the moment. It's going to break eventually. Just watching for signs of it. And last week, we got for the first time all major sectors hitting the low of the day at the same time. First time that's happened in at least a month, and as long as I can remember, which means it's been a little bit of a while. NVDA up a little bit. Looks fairly range bound on the conference here. IWM is also one of the leaders on the way down. Nice head and shoulders here. Confirmed. And weekly consolidation clearly underway. Weekly EMA 12 coming into play. We've been holding that for months. That's key. If we lose it, something's shifting more significantly. But holding it for now. The dollar. So solid bounce on the dollar. Weekly, stair step up, stair step down. But I'm just viewing this as the equilibrium here. And now we have a weekly high or low. And anything under 104.98 is just a lower high. So watching to see if a weekly lower high and a continued tightening range into April is going to shape up. Obviously, FOMC reaction is going to be key here as well. Gold. Healthy consolidation. No red flags. Trying to shape up a bull flag if daily EMA 12 can keep support. Silver already confirmed a bull flag. So it was a laggard and played a little bit of a catch up to end last week. The miners also played a little bit of catch up, but stalling out a bit. I'm watching the miners GDX and this downtrend resistance, which is still in play. And watching to see if we reject from that or not. But again, FOMC is going to impact the metals and the dollar a good bit here midweek. But overall, I'm cautious the broader market. I'm protected. I'm watching if semiconductor rotation goes into Tesla. Cannabis bulls have nice momentum. We're going to see daily consolidation inevitably. We got to confirm that daily uptrend once we do top out of this initial momentum. Overall, solid Monday. A lot going on out there in the market. Appreciate you watching. As always, again, those weekend videos, if you're into the cannabis sector, this past weekend was one of the most in-depth ones that I've put out in a while. So definitely suggest checking those out. Otherwise, we will see you soon. Don't forget to do good things.